Hey guys, how y'all doing? My name is Kieran, and this is Fox Off RPG. So today we're back yet again with another excellent game by one of my favourite creators, Alex T of Blackoath Entertainment. We're going to be looking at Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse. So this is going to be, again, as it says here, a post-apocalyptic feudal role-playing game. Essentially, the way I sort of when I've played this and I've read some of the background and lore behind it, it reminds me a lot of Warhammer 40k. And what I mean by that is, in Warhammer, there's lots of different types of worlds out there outside the reach of the Imperium, and there's some worlds where there's futuristic tech in a feudalistic environment, and the way things are run. Like the people at the top, the lords and ladies, the governors, they kind of know more about the world and the universe. They understand what some of the tech is, but no one really knows to the full extent of how to create things anymore, because the universe has been in collapse. It's very similar here. People of the world, they know the technology is there, but they don't know how it was created, what it was used for, but they are able to use it. They just can't recreate it. So it's kind of like it's a swords and machinery game instead of like sword and sorcery. It's a swords and machinery game. So before we get into that, into the review of this, again, I just want to thank everyone for tuning in and watching these videos. It means a hell of a lot to me. Again, if you like, comment, subscribe, that helps out the channel massively in the algorithm. Yeah, so I'm going to leave a link in the description where you can find this on Alex's website. I'll also leave a link where you can get on drive-thru. As always, when it comes to any independent or small creator, I always tell people buy from their own website first. If it's in PDFs, if it's physical copies, if you can, buy from there, because they're going to get bigger cuts of the money. And yeah, this recently became available on ttrpg. It was his Patreon exclusive, along with an expansion for it. I'm not going to look at the expansion today. I need to play that more to really get into it. I've been playing this on and off for a few weeks. Alex actually gave me the free copies of this and the expansion after I interviewed him on there a couple of weeks back on the channel. I'm also going to link in the top right corner where you can watch the interview if you want. It's going to be talking about his games, but was mostly focused on his Kickstarter of Riftbreakers 2, or 2nd edition, I mean. But we do talk about a lot of stuff. I'm a big fan of his. He's the reason I got back into RPG game and I found solo play. And this does have solo rules. You can play with a group of people. You can play solo. It's an excellent game. It's a pretty rules-like game as well. And Alex has said, like, I can't really do rules light, but this is as rules light as I can get. But it works. It's very well done. The tables and spark tables and action tables are great. So let's get into the review. So basically, Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse is a game, as it says here, human technology reaches peak. AI essentially took over and they saw the collapse of the world. And the people now don't really know anything about how this technology works, what it is. But they do, all they know is it's as extreme power. And it allows you to do things that you would not normally be able to do. So it's kind of linking your spells and magic into it. So the spells in this are not necessarily magic. They're just technology. But to high technology, to primitive people, it might as well be magic. That's kind of the way I've interpreted it. I've read this. Maybe other people might read it a little different, but that's how it feels like to me. You're going to be playing as a reclaimer. Reclaimers are going to be player characters. Reclaimers are basically people who are going to go off into the world. They're going to go into dungeons. They can go into walk across the land, and they're going to find relics and energy cores. These energy cores are, again, technology. They're like a battery. These batteries allow you to cast magic or do other things in the world. And they're very powerful. They're going to they're basically like the currency. You also have artifacts in this as well, which are going to grant for magical abilities and powers. And again, how you're going to create your character is straightforward. You're going to roll 3d6. There you go. And that's going to get your attributes, your normal strength, constitution, dexterity, intelligence, willpower, presence. And it gives an examples of what they're going to use for. So presence, intimidation, charm, willpower, spiritual energy, force, will, intelligence, understanding forgotten languages, solving puzzles, and so on. Dexterity is one of your attempts to lockpick, move silently, climb. Constitution can be used for resisting poison, disease, and other environmental effects, because you can come across stuff like poison gas fields and other stuff like that. Breaking down walls for strength, metal bars, and so on. Your sort of classic stats and what they do. You're going to have other details, talk about carrying capacity, your defense rating, drawbacks and feats. We'll get into that now. So when you are coming and creating a character, you're going to have feats. You can have, I think it's up to 3, but for every feat you have to have a drawback. So if you want, you can just have 1. But you can have up to 3, which is cool. And each feat is going to give you something different. You can pick these out. So if you want, you can have quick hands, which is going to give you advantage in all dex checks relating to sleight of hand and thievery. And again, how you pick and roll, or if you choose, you could roll these out, but just doesn't have a number, but I just picked them out. And it's going to inform your character of what they are and what they can do, as well as your stats, so your attribute points, which is great. There's a nice list. I think there's 20 or so here, and then you have your drawbacks, and there's about 10, there's 10 here, and you can roll them if you want, and they're going to have negative consequences because again they're drawbacks. So you're arrogant. The first one here, your character is overly confident and ignores warning signs, making them more likely to fall into traps and dangerous situations. Some of this stuff is like that. It might be a bit more role playing, or you could basically say you have a negative modifier to things for noticing. A missing eye. Your character is missing an eye, giving them a disadvantage on all perception-based tasks. So when you roll advantage and disadvantage, again, this is going to be roll 2d20. High, if you have advantage, you pick the highest dice. If you have the disadvantage, you pick the lowest dice. Very simple, straightforward, and it gives you d20 names and a d20 background check if you want to use these. I like the backgrounds, and if you want to choose a name, you can. They're sort of very medieval Germanic-y feel to the names, which I do like. I love that sort of feel. And the background checks, the backgrounds are, I like them, and that's going to again inform your character along with your feats and your drawbacks and your attributes. And this all comes together to create a very unique character. And it talks about more stuff like where you're from, what part of the world you're from, your vices, maybe you're envious, you're lustful, you're lazy, you're bitter. These are going to add for role-playing sort of stuff into the game. Different motivations, d20 lists. You're searching for children who were quote-unquote chosen. That's going to be an opportunity here. You prove yourself worthy. You prove yourself worthy to inherit your house after being passed over. This sort of background I would work with, this sort of motivation you probably want to work with, like a disgraced knight, noble house exile, something like that. And your starting gear, everyone's going to get a weapon, an armor of their choice. You have 10 rations and a kofel containing, basically a bag containing 500 credits. And it tells you how much XP you're required to level up, and yeah, it's very simple, very straightforward. And the game, you start at level 1 with 0 experience, and there is no level cap. So you can essentially determine based on how this works, how many points to add. So to get level 1, to get from level 1 to 2, you need 50. To get from level 2 to 3, you need 104 XP, and after that, it's just 2 XP up. So it's very simple, very straightforward. Cultivating development points. So development points are going to be used to increase your some of your stats, by new feats and stuff like that. It can even affect your attribute points as well. Sorry about to say that. But the cultivating points is really cool. So you can basically save up points, and you can only save so many per level, and only when you get to a certain level you can then cultivate them, which is basically you're saving your points up to gamble. But the gamble doesn't really have a negative side effect. So if you fail the check, it doesn't cost you anything, but if you pass the check, you will gain an extra +1 on top of how many points you've saved. So you're basically you're sort of like restricting your character a bit early on, to then waiting for a bigger payout later on, which is an interesting idea. And it talks about how XP are earned. It's very simple. 2 XP per session played, 1 XP per square traveled. If you wanted to as well, you could put in 1 XP or 2 XP for major or minor and major tasks. And this is going to speed up your level development and stuff like that, which might be useful for some people. This game will also have very good solo rules like all Alex's games do, which is absolutely brilliant. You then have simple checks that you want to do for rolling modifiers. It talks about your base chance of succeeding. You have easy, very hard, average, hard, very hard, and near impossible. But then it has dynamic check target numbers. So you can basically add these modifiers onto the target number from how easy or hard it is. Yeah, so that's another way you can do it. So it gives you options on how you want to do things. This can be decided by the DM if you are playing as a group, or if you're playing solo. If I was playing solo, I'd just use this, but maybe if I'm playing as a group, I might make it a bit more interesting, a bit more, like it says, dynamic. And this will also make it so if you're doing the same check over and over again, you know you're not sure what your target's going to be. So it can make it a little easier or a little harder depending on the check, instead of having like a set 5, 10, 20, you know, whatever it is. And it talks about shifting target numbers. Again, that's going to be doing that depending on what it is. Advantage and disadvantage, we already talked about. Roll 2d20. If you have disadvantage, you take the lowest. If you have advantage, you take the highest. And critical failure and success. 1 on a d20 is always a critical failure, and a 20 is always success. And it will also have something to do with this in combat as well, and we'll go over that now in a few minutes. Assisting on checks. The characters can assist on checks based on their stats and what they're trying to do. You'll get some bonuses for that. Combat rounds and turns, and simple things you want to find out about how they work. An average round lasts 10 seconds. And it talks about surprise. If you're trying to surprise a character, you're going to be doing a dex check. Your dex check versus their perception check. Again, simple, straightforward, easy to do. Initiative, d20 roll. Highest roll wins. A 1 is always an absolute failure, and you basically lose your turn. And on a 20, you gain what talks about here, an advantage on your first check. So basically, if you decide to do an attack straight away, you're going to gain an advantage on your attack. And if you roll a 1, you're going to gain. You basically miss a turn. The other player or NPC will get a free attack round on you, essentially. And it talks about the ranges. Now, the ranges in this are actually a lot like Shadowdark, which I like. It keeps things a bit more vague, which is great for theatre of the mind, in my opinion. I like to play theatre of the mind. It's just me. I don't mind using minis and models. I have tons, but I don't have space at the moment, so that's why I like theatre of the mind. So it talks about engage, which is melee range combat. You near, which is like you're close. You can move into range on your next turn usually, but you can't melee attack. You can do shooting or spells and stuff like that. And the far range is you're going to be doing range combat or range spells. Actions you can take per character turn. You get a free action. You have 1 movement action and a standard action. A free action could be anything from talking to another player to tell them what you're going to do or what they should do. They can be changing or swapping weapons. If you roll on a combat, you roll a 1, you will drop your weapon, but you can then use a free action to change your weapon if you have another one. Otherwise, you will have to spend your standard action to pick that weapon back up. Movement action is simply moving to engage or disengage. You can disengage from combat, which then requires you to take checks, obviously. And one standard action is basically, combat or using some sort of gear or feat, spell. Basically, yeah. And it talks about standard combat actions that you can take. You can charge, but your damage, your DR is reduced by 2. Creating an opening, basically you're basically going to put your way in front of the target, distract them, and maybe you hit them or something like that, and put them off foot, and then another character can come in and get a little bonus to then attack. You talk about disarm, you have grapple, you have push, you have trip, you have wide swing, you have different spells, you've disengaged. Again, that's going to be a dex versus dex check here, and to see if you disengage or not. And again, if you roll a 1, you're screwed. You're going to get hit a lot. Use an item. These are your standard basic combat actions. Attack rolls, you must roll a d20 based on their strength or dex, depending on if you're using a weapon or spell, what they are. Critical hits and misses, again, if a player rolls a 1 from defending an enemy attack, that means the attacker managed to strike with a critical hit. So you're going to be rolling for the NPC's attacks, and if you roll a 1, you're rolling your defense, and if you roll a 1 in your defense, it assumes that they do a critical hit. So if you roll a 20, that means they critical fail. If you roll a 1, that means they critically hit you. So it's like the opposite of what you're used to, but it's very simple, very straightforward. You can dual wield, you have unarmed combat, death and healing. If you hit 0 hit points, you are dead. A character can make a hard intelligence check to heal another character or creature. So you might come across a creature in the world that's injured, and maybe you heal it up, and maybe it can become a temporary ally. Yeah, that's cool. Or you can help an NPC. You might have information, or a player character if you're playing in a group, or maybe you're playing solo and you have you have to have an NPC player that you're role playing as, which is cool, and has different kind of conditions like bleeding, blinding, burning, starvation, stunned, restrained, prone, poisoned, fatigued, and all the different checks you're going to need to make. This is a very complete game. I love it. I'm having lots of fun with it. Magic and spell casting. So the Renaissance is it's the batteries we were talking about before, and they're going to be they're cores, battery cores, which are used for everything really. You can use these to power up your relics and your spells, and we'll talk about the spells now. And here's a list of D20 spells, and here's what they do. I'm going to read 1 or 2 of these here. So we look at Blast. You need to roll a 12 or more. The range is far away, so it's actually going to be pretty easy to roll. So a 12 is slightly above average on a d20. A pulse of energy emerges from the relic, blasting the target, and the target itself is d10 damage, so that's quite powerful. A lot of the weapons, like are d6 weapons for ranges. For damage, so that's quite powerful. You have hover, which is going to lift your character up to 20 feet in the air, or something else 20 feet into the air, and it can last up for 10 minutes. So if you're in a bad way, maybe there's like a big boss monster, if you can manage to use that spell on them, they're up there for 10 minutes and they can't move. That's going to be plenty of time for you to escape. Because remember, combat in games, in roleplay games, is very quick. It's 10 seconds a turn, each character's turn. And so like in real life, combat only lasts like a night's of fighting, and usually lasts a few seconds, maybe a minute or 2 at most. Influence mind, so basically you can get the character to do what you want. Essentially, you can maybe have the character ignore your presence, they can't see you anymore, they wander off, so on. So it's lots of 20 great spells here. It's not a huge number, but it's not tiny either. It's just enough. Again, this is a rules light role playing game. You're gonna have a lot of fun in this. It's definitely a unique world. I love it. It's just the sense of feel of everything is brilliant. Starvations and fatigue. Again, Alex's games often have survival mechanisms in them, mechanics, and I love that. Survival is it's a great thing I love in my games. And how starvation and fatigue works is super simple. So you have to eat once a day. Simple as that. If you go more than 1 day, you go 2 or more days, for every 2 days you go without eating, you're basically all your checks for strength, dex, and constitution, they're going to become more difficult. So they go up on the difficulty scale, like we saw earlier. So very easy becomes easy, easy becomes hard, hard becomes, so on and so forth. And if you go a week without sleep, you become starved, and basically your character is feeble and weak. And it gives more advice about game mastering, or playing without a game master, so more solo play. And it talks about establishing scenes, twist dice and stuff like that. We'll go through some of that stuff now. And again, it talks about yes/no oracles. There's lots of oracles out there you can use. You can use the one that's in here. You can use all the stuff that's in here for other games as well, if you wish. Surprise events. We're talking about complications. Is there going to be a complication? What the complication is? Is it a yes? Is it no? Is it no to the simple answer and just give a complication to the yes or no? Then you have surprise events, and then you basically need to interpret things with solo play, and it gives you sort of like outlines of how to do all the stuff here. So it's very simple, very straightforward, and it talks about knowledge and the character, what the character would and would not know, a location, of various other people or parties involved, updating story arcs. So this is when we talked about earlier, having minor and major goals. These are all going to be involved in solo play as well. Action, teams, and tables. Again, I'm not going to read all this. It's simple stuff, but you can, if you pick this up, you can read it. You'll understand it in a few minutes. It doesn't take any effort at all. And the action and team. So you want to pick one or two actions and then a team, and you sort of use these to interpret things. And how about how to interpret things, an event or an action, and then the significance of it. You can then roll it up. Is there anything significant on the table here? If there is, you can roll it. You can bind that again with these action tables, and you obviously then have your resolution, resolutions if you succeed, and if you did or did not succeed, and how great this succession or failure was. Excuse me. Then you have to talk about tracking events, to find a resource. It just gives you again more information on how to keep track of everything. Again, this is all very simple, straightforward. And then this next part is NPC stuff. This is used for everyone. If you're not really able to think of something on the fly, you're not sure what to do, look at this. Your reactions from sentient creatures, anywhere from hostile, wary, neutral, curious, friendly, or helpful. More likely than not, they're going to be hostile or wary of you. So wary could turn into hostile or neutral very quickly. Character details, what they're going to be like, their emotional states, their gender, their age. Again, straightforward, simple. And again, when you're rolling like on a d6 table here, you roll 2d6. One of them is going to be if it's a male or female, or they're androgynous, young, old, middle-aged, etc. NPC motivation. You can also use this for your own character motivation if you wish. If you can't really think of anything that you might want, or you want to expand upon the motivation table that we had at the beginning for character creation. NPC nature, what they're doing, and then this can all be plugged into event tables and action tables to then create different scenarios with NPCs in an event or situation or whatever's going on. Combat, how combat works. Once a character becomes at 50% or less, they will then start to use other actions, and if it's at full health, you'll have a standard action or a special action, and you're going to roll d10 for that. Now when it comes down to 50% or less, they're going to use a support action if available. This could be an item to call for help, or on a 10 they'll run away because they don't want to die. And here is going to talk more about the world, the weather, how it's going to be. The weather is going to be dangerous. You're going to have different sort of gases and poisons and stuff in the air. The unpredictable weather, you can go from being a nice calm day to a massive storm in the middle in a few minutes. The civilization, how the world has gone from the absolute brink of destruction and it's trying to come back, and how the people rule or ruled over, different types of classes you'll have. Again, it's going to be more of the stuff we talked about at the beginning in a little more detail. Again, you can read that for yourself. It's going to help inform how you're going to perceive the world and how you're going to roleplay. And it just gives a simple grid hex here. When you get this, you'll have a character sheet, you'll have some other sheets, you have scene sheets you can use. Of course, you can just use a blank piece of paper, it's not a big deal. But it also has like a grid, a box grid like this, and that's going to be for your exploration procedures, and we'll go over that now in a minute. And it talks about when you're going to exploration, when you're doing exploration, you're going to go for you're going to check weather, you're going to check for points of interest, what they could be, and then you can interpret them and what they will be based on this this chart here. And here we have on the side here is basically a wasteland terrain. and it reminds me very much of AD&D chart, which I absolutely love. So let's say we are on Swamp. Okay. We roll a d20. There's a 1 in 10 chance we are back on a swamp. But say if we roll a 15, we're now in a thicket. Or we roll a 17, we're now in a desert. The cool thing about being a post-apocalyptic world is the terrain doesn't have to make as much sense, but this will give make more sense to the world, because you're more likely to roll between a 1 and 10 than you are to roll a 13 or a 14. It's just the chance is so much higher. So you're more likely, if you're in a swamp, you're more likely to be in a swamp. If you're in a hill area, you're more likely to be in a hill area. It's a great little chart. You'll have to turn your head to the side because it's the way it's put out in the book to fit in. But yeah, it's absolutely great. The weather chart here talks about you have 20 different roles and what they're going to be, the description, and what effect it's going to take place in the world. Again, when we come across on the check for landmark, you're going to have checks for what kind of landmark it is, and then you can interpret it into your role play as well. So you come across a chapel, you might come across a fortress. What's that fortress? Maybe the fortress could be a fortress town or trading center. Maybe it's the fortress you're looking for that has someone being held captive. A descriptor as well, exploration events, and just the procedures, what you're going to go through, some hazards you might come across, poisonous plants, sinkholes, flash floods. Again, the encounter charts, outdoor encounters, and I think there's 27 or 28 creatures in total, creatures and monsters you can come across. Settlement names, you roll them up randomly. You have Rockmore, Lightbound, Deephold, so you're going to roll a d10 twice or roll 2d10. How do you feel about strangers? And this is going to be just for roleplay and information purposes. What's going to be in this towns and cities or whatever place you're in. And you might be asked to find something, get something, an item, a person, a place, and there you go. So recover, incriminating, destroy. So you need to recover some incriminating evidence and destroy. You need to recover some incriminating evidence and destroy the map to it. You know, something like that. What is the target? And again, it gives you more. NPC encounters. Again, all this stuff plays into each other, which is great. So as we go along, we're going to be combining all the stuff we rolled up so far, and it all becomes to one scene to create one story arc that you can play out. You know, it might just be a narrative thing, it might be a combat, it might be quests, or it might be a mixture of things all coming together into one situation. You can also throw in stuff like you're being betrayed by your quest giver. Again, when you're doing solo play, you need to interpret things. But also, this part is not only just for solo play. You can use this as a DM instead of coming up with things on top of your head, or use these things to inspire you. And then rune exploration. Excuse me, get a drink. So rune exploration. So basically thinking about essentially dungeon delving. He talks about how you map the runes out, what you're gonna roll, the size of the area, and when you're going from area to area, if you're gonna roll into corridor or another room, special conditions that might have within a room, rune or dungeon. So it might be darkness, although there's still functioning lighting and illumination. Essentially, it's very dim, and you're not being able to see very well, and you're going to have disadvantage on perception and attack rolls. That's just an example there. Or an extreme cold, or another example here. And the temperature is dangerously low. Your max health is being reduced by d6 while you remain here. So the longer you're in there, I wouldn't roll that straight away, or something like that. I would roll it as you come into the dungeon. You find into the rune, you find extremely cold. You find frost and ice. on the walls and the corners. And then after maybe a couple turns of being in there, d6 damage. That's what I would do if I was a DM. But if I was solo play, maybe I would wait 1 or 2 before doing that. Room contents, what's in it, security feature, it's blocked by something, there's nothing of interest there. Another feature that's used the feature tables, and you have the different tables down here, room tables, details, themes, verbs, security systems. If you do roll a security system, this is what it is. Room feature, room encounters, rune encounters, and feature effects. So everything is gonna, again, everything we're rolling and coming up together is all clashing and coming into one to create something cool. And we have a rune effect, runes effect, I mean. So on a 7, you have an ancient ally attempts a conversation with you. Okay, cool. Memory crystals replay personal messages. Found recording reveals crucial historical truths. And then it comes into gear and encumbrance. So basically you are going to have a number of points based upon slots available, and the higher your strength, the more you're going to be able to carry usually. And it talks about a backpack that hold 10 items. And here are some just very simple things. How much do they cost? Again, extra gear, crowbar, like can be used to break into rooms and areas. Pry open doors, oil lamps, the light ways up. You can also use oil or lamp oil to then burn things as well. So again, you have to think outside the box when you're role playing. And it talks about the different weapons, weapon efficiency, rounds for range weaponry, and there is a big list of all the stuff you can buy or find. And it talks about scavenging, basically finding loot, gear, and what they are. And here are some random tables. D66, random weapon, D10 random armor, D10 random gear, and has about relic appearance, artifacts, what they are, what they do. So lots of stuff like that. Again, all this stuff is going to help inform the world. And one of the last things here is creatures. And again, it's going to talk about the attack, the defense rating, the constitution, the experience you're going to be granted by beating one of these. You have your health, initiative, so how much of a bonus you're going to have, the initiative, the loot, the type of loot you can or do find after you beat them, if you beat them, the number of these, the perception the creature has, its dexterity, the type of creature that it is, and the willpower it has. So all these things are going to come together to create your stats. And there you go. Broken Prince, there's all the basic stats. So it's 10 health, attack of hard, so you're going to roll on the hard chart. Defense rating is DR, easy. Initiative 15, so it has not terribly high but not low, it's like middle, high middle. But yeah, that's everything there. And there's like just 27 or 28 of these, and you could come up with your own as well. You can kind of figure out what's easy and what's difficult in terms of health and how they work, but you don't need it. There's plenty here. There's 27, 28, and you're not going to come across a ton of creatures at one go usually. But yeah, that is my review of Machine Gods of the Noxian Expanse. Again, another excellent game by Alex T. He did give me copies of this and the expansion, which I'm very grateful for. He's a great guy. Like I said before many times, he's the reason I got back into RPG games. I discovered Cross 1,000 Dead Worlds. I reviewed that recently as well, along with Sacrifice and Incense, or Orion and Incense RPG. Yeah, I have most of his games at this stage. I'm a fan, so yeah, I have, again, like I said before, I have the interview with him, so you can check that out if you want. You can check out the other reviews. If you do like more sci-fi stuff, Across 1,000 Dead Worlds will be right up your alley. This is, again, I describe Machine Gods as a sword and machinery sci-fi apocalyptic game, and I think Alex describes this as a post-apocalyptic feudal role-playing game. Both, in my opinion, are excellent descriptors of what these games are. Again, if you like Warhammer and you like the more if you like Warhammer 40k and you like being in the worlds where things are a bit more quote unquote simple, like the people don't really understand how technology works, they don't know, they think it's all magic. You'll have like guys in body armor and primitive shields, but then they'll be shooting like energy pistols, like las guns or whatever, or they'll have like an energy sword or something like that. So this will be right up your alley. Again, it's simple and straightforward, easy to learn. The solo stuff in this can be used in any other game, like the action tables and stuff like that. They're very broad and open. Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant. I love it. So yeah, please check this out. Go on Alex's website, and if you want to buy anything from there, do it on his website if you can. I know he has most of his books are in print. He will have them in and out of stock from time to time. Most of his books, or all of them, you can find on ttrpg as well for print on demand and physical and PDF copies. So yeah, I will leave again a link to Alex's website, his X page, his drive-thru, and if you want to use the drive-thru, I'll attach my affiliate links. That will help out the channel a little bit, but again, if you can, use his website. That's it, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you like this one. I really have. I've been playing it on and off for the last couple of weeks. I've had a hell of a great time. So thank you for everyone for watching, and I'll talk to you all again soon. Thank you and goodbye.